so much, Nicole. Thank you. Look at this crowd. We're all looking pretty good in pink here. Most of us. I want to thank Nicole Clegg, along with the staff and volunteers at Planned Parenthood, the centers across Maine, and for their fierce advocacy and commitment to Maine people, all of Maine people. I also want to thank Marissa and Sarah. Their stories exemplify the courage and dedication we must exhibit as we fight to protect the rights of all Maine people to make their own decisions about their futures. And never has that courage or dedication been more important than right now, as those very rights are under attack on every front. That's why it is such an extraordinary honor to be here today and to have the support of Planned Parenthood Maine Action Fund. For more than 100 years, Planned Parenthood has worked day in and day out to ensure that people have access to the health care services they not only need, but deserve. Yes. In fact, thanks to Planned Parenthood, the health centers here in Maine, more than 11,500 people are able to access basic and critical health care services, including cancer screenings and prevention, STI testing and treatment, birth control, and abortion services. And they're able to access these services safely, in an informed manner, and free from judgment, pressure, intimidation, or discrimination. Yes. This, friends, is the power of Planned Parenthood. And please join me in thanking them for this tremendous and critical work. You may not know this about me, but I grew up in rural Maine, in Farmington, Maine, and I loved growing up there, and it's my home today. And a big part of who I am is growing up in Maine. And I've got to tell you, though, it was by no means a hotbed of women's rights or activism, especially in those early years when I came of age. It was during this time when abortion was still illegal, when women across Maine who found themselves unexpectedly pregnant and in need had nowhere to turn. And when an abortion involved clandestine, dangerous arrangements. This was a time when birth control was virtually impossible to obtain, especially in rural Maine, where the local doctor or the pharmacist was also your neighbor, where the best method to avoid pregnancy was to be extremely careful, whatever that meant. This was during a time when, even in case of rape or incest, you could not get health care services, and you could not ever get an abortion. Times have changed, but that was a time when women's health was of secondary concern, when it was impolite or out of line to discuss reproductive health. We've come a long ways since then, but not without a fight. And I'm pleased since those times to have helped raise 5 wonderful young women, one of whom is here today. Lisa, we want to come forward? I love you, who's expecting her second little girl, the grandmother of 2 little girls, and I have 3 grandsons, all of whom are so important to me. Their lives, their ability to make healthcare decisions are all critical and very important to me. But the fight we've had in the last decades, many decades, it's a fight I've been proud to take part of. From co-founding the Maine Women's Lobby when it was clear that women's voices were not being heard in Augusta, to fighting the Trump administration now as it tries to roll back the contraception mandate in the Affordable Care Act, a disastrous move for women, fighting other states that are trying to make abortion harder and harder to get and virtually illegal, if not directly, completely illegal. We're part of that fight. And fighting against those who try to harass, intimidate, and prevent women from going to Planned Parenthood for basic services. And fighting for legislation that would make safe abortion more widely available to women across Maine, especially those living in rural and underserved, medically underserved areas. This is the fight I will continue to lead as governor. This is the fight I pledge to continue as your governor. Let's be clear about the choices facing us. Forces that would undermine, roll back, or outright eliminate your right to use birth control or to obtain a safe and legal abortion are more powerful today than they have been in decades. We can take nothing for granted anymore. As politicians in Washington and Augusta openly wonder if this is their long-awaited opportunity to finally end safe and legal abortion in Maine and in the United States. from President Trump's nomination of Judge Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, which, any opinions on that? Which presents the most serious threat to safe and legal abortion that we have seen in generations. To my Republican opponent, Sean Moody, who has pledged to enact an extreme agenda aimed at inserting politicians between a patient and the patient's health care provider. That is wrong, and I have got news for President Trump and for Sean Moody. If you want to roll back the rights of Maine women, if you want to come after Planned Parenthood and the critical services they provide to Maine people, you're going to have to get through me first. So I stand here today to pledge to each of you and to the people of Maine, as governor, I will fight each and every day to protect a person's right to make her own personal medical decisions. I will fight to protect Planned Parenthood in this state. I will fight to ensure that every person in this state has access to affordable, high-quality health care, including reproductive services, and that they can obtain those free from harassment and intimidation no matter where they live in Maine. That is what Maine people deserve and nothing less. So please join me in this fight, spread the word, because I need your help in carrying this forward. Because these services are more important than ever before. We cannot roll back the clock, turn back the clock, roll back the times, and the need is still there, and we have got to stand firm because our voices are more important than ever before. Access to reproductive health services is vital to the independence and dignity of every individual across Maine and across our country. Let's make sure we're heard on November 6th. Yes.